Hello, my name is Kelly Romero Betridge, and I am a middle and high school social studies teacher. I am in my last semester fulfilling my degree requirement for the online curriculum and instruction program at FSU, and naturally, my concentration is social sciences. My current teaching assignment is in an alternative education setting, which also provides me with an experience with special education. I'm looking forward to this course in particular because I do believe that my undergraduate experience left me a little bit lacking with some of the information and skill set to provide the best support to students who have been identified for special education in my general education classroom. And since I've become a teacher in Florida and have had to recertify, I have had to fulfill an additional special education requirement, but to be truthful, like it was a program that, was very easy to read and click through and, add one more stamp to the certificate so that, we could check that off and get it done. And I feel that a lot of teachers probably, felt the way that I felt, that we're spread so thin, and an additional requirement was just something we had to get through. So I'm grateful that FSU has provided or included this course into the degree requirement for curriculum instruction because I hope to actually gain something from it. In my current teaching setting, and most of my teaching experience has been in alternative education, and my teaching assignment is in our school district's in lieu of expulsion program. So students attend my school or sent to my school as an alternative placement for offenses that would otherwise have them expelled from their traditional public school, such as zero tolerance offenses like bringing weapons on campus, drugs on campus, chronically disruptive behavior, committing off-campus felonies. The chronically disruptive behavior one is a really interesting one. And most recently, we've had an influx of students due to the perceived or real threats to the school to different schools in our district after the incident in Parkland. In my school, it might be surprising for some people to learn that students are sent to alternative placement even if they receive special education. So we have many students who come to us with IEPs. Oftentimes, especially lately, what we're seeing is a lot of students come to us with 504s, which I've seen 504 plans come across in the last year or two that more closely resemble IEPs as far as needs identified and accommodations, but I'm also not seeing those same 504 students receive the same types of services that our students who have IEPs receive. And probably most often what I see come through the doors of my school of students who have been told they cannot return to their home school is students who have definite needs that have not been identified. Oftentimes it's ADHD, ODD, specific learning disabilities, symptoms of those disorders. Students are coming in with symptoms of those disorders clearly, and they have not been identified through some kind of response to intervention or through whatever schools they've come to. And even more, probably the most frequently, are students who come to us with some type of emotional impairment, who have come to us because of these chronically disruptive behaviors. And by looking back through their discipline records and their patterns of behaviors and meeting with them, sometimes it's amazing to see that now they've made it to 13, 14, 15 years old, and they've had these. They're now committing these delinquent acts, and when clearly they probably needed to have some services to support them for different types of emotional impairments that they have began exhibiting symptoms of as young students, elementary students. Sometimes I think this happens because we do have students that move around a lot, and so we've had experiences where maybe some RTI processes were implemented or begun, and then the student moves to district or moves to another school. So I think that we need to get better at that, and that was one of the things that I particularly identified with in the Heward article was how important early identification is for special needs, because what I see as an educator in alternative education are students who come to us with clear, mental health, emotional needs, other, disabilities or something that they need services for, and they're not receiving them, and they have not been identified. And so now we're trying to look to how we can, start these processes to identify these students and get them the services that they need. And in the meantime, they have then since been otherwise expelled from their school. I mean, it's alternative placement. They're provided a public education, so it's not like they're expelled from the school district altogether, but they may not set foot on their home school campus. It's trespassing. They will get arrested for that. But many of these students have now committed these delinquent acts, which have then, wound them up in the juvenile justice system as well. So I think the early identification is important, and my experience, that's my experience as a teacher. As a parent, I have a 6-year-old and a 6-year-old who will be 7 next month, and a nearly 4-year-old. And my children, my oldest child, has been identified as having ADHD. And, my husband and I are both educators, and we started to see early symptoms of it, even though we didn't necessarily want to accept that, because I think a lot of parents go through that. Where they don't want to, accept certain challenges that their children are going to have to face. But we sought out evaluation for our child. That's my dog Finnegan behind us, anyway. And they may not want to. We chose to go seek out evaluation for our own daughter, and on our own through a psychologist. She was given a diagnosis of ADHD, and she's also, intellectually advanced. So that's an extra fun challenge. But because of that, we were able to have conversations with her teachers, her school, and, provide activities. And hi, Finnegan. Okay, I see you. To provide strategies and support for our daughter so that she can reach her potential and be successful in school. So I really identified with what Heward said about early identification. And I also fully believe as an educator, in my experience, in alternative education, students, they'll graduate from our program quite frequently. One of the things that my program does offer is credit recovery. So these students who come to us with low grade point averages and are lacking on credits, we have credit recovery opportunities. So students are able to, graduate our program, or sometimes maybe they're making a choice of not finishing high school, but again, seeking another alternative route, whether it's through a GED or some other kinds of certification to support them in their adult life. But I think that we as educators and as special educators need to really make sure that we're doing what we can for our students once they leave our walls. And, he discusses that in the article about helping students with disabilities transfer from school life to adult life, because I think sometimes as educators, we get really focused on graduation rates and test scores and school improvement and all of these things that are really important and help us to improve our school and our education system. But yet, we don't always set them up entirely for when they leave us after high school. I also taught advanced placement at another school, so I worked with the other end of the spectrum, and I did see in that school a lot of support for those students. The school that I taught advanced placement in was a Title I school, so I saw that many of those students, there was a lot of support opportunities from the community and from guidance counselors, identifying those advanced students and getting them to apply for their financial aid, to apply for the colleges, apply for scholarships. And those conversations started at the very beginning of high school, and they were continually met with. They were, promoted throughout high school for them to take advantage of those opportunities to further their education once they leave high school. I don't always see that with the general education students that I have, or the special education. There's students who receive special education in my general education classroom. I do know that there are services out there that can help and assist students to make that transition. But I'm not seeing it as much. And it's not that the resources aren't necessarily out there. Yeah, they probably do need to improve, but I think the mindset of educators also need to be out there. We need to be concerned more about what our students are doing after high school, because they're going to be members of our community. So supporting a program like mine, where we're giving kids a chance to, graduate who might not graduate high school, is important, because students who have a high school diploma have a higher potential, higher earning potential, and tend to be more productive members of the community. So I think it's something that we all need to be concerned about in special education and general education. So that's my experience and my connection to special education and general education, both as an educator and as a parent. My daughter does not receive special education right now for her ADHD, but someday she might. I'm not really sure. She's very young. We identified her needs pretty early, and so as parents, we really wanted to do whatever we could to support her, make her successful, because she's a pretty smart cookie. Again, I'm hoping to learn a lot from this course. I'm looking forward to this semester. I know there will be a lot of challenges in the coming weeks as all of us teachers are wrapping up our school years, both as teachers, as parents, finishing up grad school. So it's going to be extra fun. And, that's it. And thanks so much for, listening to me carry on about education and, alternative education, which is something I could probably yammer on forever about. But I appreciate it. Thanks so much. And I'm looking forward to this semester.